I always dreamed that when I became an adult, I would definitely move away from my parents and into my own place. Well, I have to say that when I became a student and went to study in a city that was 150 kilometers away from my village, where I was born and spent my childhood, my dream partially came true. I began to live separately, but not in my own home, but in a rented apartment. But I would rather live at the train station or somewhere else than in this damned apartment after what I went through in it. But let's start from the beginning. My name is Alex, and as I said, I recently became a student of the philology faculty at the institute I dreamed to enter when I was at school. And now this day has come. Since it was a long way home, I had to find a place to live. Of course, I could have stayed in a dormitory, but I had the opportunity to rent an apartment, so I chose this option. The thing is that before that I had been working as a freelancer and was able to save a certain amount of money that would allow me to pay my rent and even have some money left over for food. Besides, I found an apartment in the ad with a suspiciously low rent, so I decided to call and make a deal right away. Hello, good afternoon. I'm looking for Nadia Vasilevna. Yes, I'm listening. Good afternoon. I'm calling about your apartment rental ad. When can I come over to take a look? Come over now. I'm free. I'll be happy to show you around. I can even lower the price a bit. Okay, thank you. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I ended the conversation and started to get ready to see my potential home, where I might have to live for the next few years while I was studying. To be honest, I was a little worried when the owner of the flat immediately offered to reduce the rent even more without even waiting for a meet. Although, as I mentioned, it was already too low. Well, who knows, maybe the person urgently needs money, I thought to myself, and grabbing an umbrella, I ran out of the dormitory where I was temporarily staying and into the street, where a heavy downpour had already begun. I didn't want to wait for it to end, but wanted to move into a place where no one would snore at night and watch stupid movies until the morning, as my roommates did. So, after waiting for the right trolley bus, I hopped on and headed to meet Nadia Vasilevna. After passing several stops, I got off at the one where the house with the flat number 11 was located nearby, and opened my umbrella and ran there. It was raining a lot, so even with the umbrella, I managed to get quite wet. I cursed at myself for not catching a cold, but I sped up my pace and reached my destination in a minute. It was an old 5-story brick building located in one of the city's residential areas. My first impression of the neighborhood was not good. It seemed too gloomy to me. But what else could I expect for such price? I'll only spend half the day here anyway, I thought to myself, and quickly ran into the house. Apartment number 11 was on the second floor. I called the owner again to tell her that I was already there. You can come in, I'm already here, she answered, sounding a little nervous. No sooner had I pressed the doorbell button than the door immediately opened in front of me and the owner of the flat greeted me. She was a short woman, about 60 years old. Come in, Alexei, I'll show you around, she said to me in a hurry and invited me to follow her. It seemed as if she was in a great hurry. She also spoke in a half-whisper, as if she was afraid that someone would hear her. But I didn't pay much attention to it at first. So I started to get acquainted with the apartment. It had one room, a small corridor, a kitchen, and a toilet with a bathtub. It was obvious that no one had done any repairs here for a long time. Old faded wallpaper on the walls, a sofa, 2 chairs, a wardrobe, and a desk. Cracked linoleum on the floor in some places, with a carpet of Soviet production on top of it. The kitchen also did not stand out in this regard. White tiled walls with 3 kitchen cabinets, a small table, and 3 stools on the floor. The bathroom and toilet were not in the best condition either. At least there was hot water. In general, it's far from ideal, but you can live, and for a pittance. What else does a student need? After a quick run through all the rooms, the owner asked me, "Well, what do you think? The apartment is not renovated, of course, but as you can see, the payment corresponds to the condition. I can throw in a little more. Are you going to move in?" "Yes, I'm ready even today. The price suits me perfectly. You don't need to throw in any more." "Thank you, great," Nadia Vasilevna immediately replied. "But if you can pay for 1 month in advance." "Okay," I said, and paid. "Thanks a lot. You can call if you need anything," she added, and quickly wrote her phone number on a piece of paper and handed it to me. "Okay, then, I'm leaving, and you can settle in." She quickly turned around and ran to the exit. The owner was visibly nervous and seemed to be uncomfortable with being in this apartment. "What about the key?" I shouted after her. "I completely forgot." She hastily took the key out of her purse, handed it to me, and ran out of the apartment, saying goodbye once again. What a strange woman, I said to myself, and went to take a closer look at the rooms. After walking around the apartment for about 15 minutes and having a good look at everything, I got dressed and headed to the dorm to get my things and move out of the room I had been living in. Once I got everything organized, I called a taxi, put my bags in it, and headed to my new place of residence. Since I didn't have a class that day, I spent all the time I had to organize my apartment. I cleaned everything, put my things away, and managed to run to the store, which was about 50 meters from the house, to buy some groceries. Since tomorrow is Saturday, I decided to organize a small celebration of the so-called housewarming party in the evening, inviting Mikhailo, Andrei, and Sasha, my classmates with whom we have already become good friends. So, after ordering a few pizzas and bottles of beer, I was waiting for my friends. At about 9:30 in the evening, I heard the doorbell ring. Here come the guys, I thought to myself, and ran to open the door. When I opened it and didn't see anyone there, I was a little confused. Is this some kind of a joke? Guys, stop joking, let's go celebrate. I shouted into the empty corridor, thinking that my friends were pranking me. But there was silence in response. After standing there for about half a minute, I returned to my apartment and closed the door behind me. It was strange. Who is this joker here? Perhaps the neighbor's children decided to say hello to their new neighbor in this way. Or maybe there was a glitch with the door's bell. My thoughts were interrupted by another doorbell. I jumped up in fright. What the hell, I exclaimed, and headed to the door, but before opening it, I decided to look through the peephole first. When I looked through the peephole, I saw my friends behind the door and immediately opened the door. "You guys are such jokers. I appreciated your prank," I immediately said to them, to which the guys looked at me in surprise, and Sasha asked, "What prank? What are you talking about?" "Oh, that's it. You should do stand-up shows." "So you want to tell that it wasn't you who rang the doorbell 3 minutes ago?" "No," Andre answered. "We have only just got here." "Oh, okay. Come in," I interrupted my friend and invited the guys to the apartment. They immediately came in and, without having time to undress completely, went to look around the apartment. "It's not a bad place," Michaela said. "Not 5 stars, but it'll do for a poor student." Having completed the inspection, I invited the guys to the table and we began our party. While drinking a frothy drink and eating pizza and talking about various topics, we didn't even notice how quickly the time passed. It was already 2 a.m. When we finished eating and drinking, my friends called a taxi and, barely able to stand, said goodbye to me and left the apartment. And I, leaving a pile of beer bottles on the table and empty pizza boxes, decided to postpone the cleaning until tomorrow and fell asleep on the couch without taking off my clothes. Somewhere in the middle of the night, the doorbell rang again. But I had no desire to go and see who it was at that time. "Stupid doorbell. I'll have to fix you," I muttered in my sleep. I could also hear some rattling coming from the kitchen, but I was so sleepy that I didn't go to see what was going on. The next morning I woke up with a terrible hangover. My head was just pounding. So the first thing I did was to go to the kitchen to drink some water. When I got there, I looked at the table and said in disbelief what was going on here. Yesterday everything seemed to be on the table, didn't it? I don't remember anything. The kitchen was a real mess. Beer bottles and torn pizza boxes were lying on the floor. The stools were also out of place. One was upside down on the floor in the opposite direction from the table, and 2 were under the table for some reason. The water in the sink was running in a small stream. "I don't understand anything," I said, holding my head. "I won't get drunk like that again." But that was only the beginning of the horrors that followed. I spent the next half a day in bed. At about 5 p.m., when my head was a little bit dizzy, I decided to call my friends and tell them about what I found in the kitchen. "Come on, Alex, we couldn't have done this. I remember well that when we left your place, everything was on the table. Maybe you went to the bathroom or to drink water at night and drunkenly missed a turn," Andre joked. "Yeah, and accidentally tore up all the boxes," I joked back. All joking aside, this incident worried me a bit. I really had no explanation for what had happened. So I just decided that it a memory lapse. That's what happens when you have too much to drink. After running to the store to buy some mineral water, I decided to spend the evening watching one of my favorite movies on my laptop. So, after starting it up, I lay down on the couch and started watching. After about 20 minutes, I heard the doorbell ring again. I exclaimed in anger and ran to the door. Looking through the peephole, I saw an old lady standing outside the door, staring at my door without blinking. She was very thin, her skin was practically covering her bones, and it seemed that there were no muscles underneath. She was dressed entirely in black. Her gray hair was disheveled, as if she hadn't combed it for weeks. Without opening the door, I exclaimed. "What do you want?" As soon as I said this, she got immediately close to the door and looked directly into the peephole, so that I jumped away from the door and spoke to me in some kind of inhuman otherworldly voice.
"Get out of here, or you will die."
My blood ran cold from what I heard. It creeped me. "Who are you? What do you want?" I asked in a trembling voice. But there was no answer. I decided to approach the door as quietly as possible and look through the peephole again. But there was no one behind the door. What the hell is going on here? Who the hell is that? I called Andre and told him about my latest adventure. "My friend, I see you're not bored at this flat," he said to me in a joking tone. "Yeah, if you could hear that old lady's voice," I replied to Andre, "I would have seen how much fun you were having." And I wanted to say something else to Andre, but the connection was suddenly cut off. I tried to call back, but the line was busy. It must be a problem with the connection, I thought, and I put the phone on the table and wanted to go back to watching the movie, when suddenly the ringtone started to play on the phone. "Oh, Andre is calling back," I thought, and picked up the phone from the table to answer the call. But looking at its display, I noticed that the call was coming from a hidden number. After hesitating for 5 seconds, I pressed the answer key and put the phone to my ear. "Hello," I said. In response, I heard some incomprehensible wheezing in the speaker, followed by a phrase,
"I will cut out your eyes and heart."
I threw the phone away and cursed loudly. What a crazy woman. How did you get my number? I was both frightened and angry, so I decided to call the owner of the apartment to find out what the hell was going on and who the old woman was. But when I tried to call her, I heard that the subscriber was out of range. I tried again the same thing. So, giving up, I checked to make sure I hadn't forgotten to lock the front door and went to bed. Surprisingly, the night passed without incident. I decided to spend Sunday outside the apartment, so after calling my friends, I decided to walk around the city and have some fun. I returned home in the evening. We had a good time, sat in a cafe, walked with girls, so I was in a great mood. I had almost forgotten what happened yesterday. But that was until I got to the door of my apartment. As I approached it, I was horrified by what I saw. The door was smeared with blood mixed with dirt, and a few feet above the handle was an inscription scratched into the wood. "Get out." I was about to call the police, but decided to ask the neighbors if they had seen who could have done this. So I went to the nearest neighbor's door and knocked on it and waited. But no one was going to open it for me. After waiting a minute, I went to the next one. The situation was the same here. No one opened the door. I managed to get through only to the one farthest from my apartment in the corridor. After about 10 seconds, the door opened and an old man of about 70 stood in front of me. He was dressed in an old worn-out jacket and had a long gray beard. "What do you want, boy?" he asked me. "Good afternoon." I greeted him. "I'm your new neighbor from apartment 11. I wanted to ask you if you were. Listen, son, it's a mistake to move in here. You better get out of here quickly before it's too late," the old man interrupted me. "Nadia will not come down. How long ago did you settle in?" 2 days ago." Well, go and pack your things and run away. At least can you explain to me what's going on here? What kind of strange old lady came to me and screamed at me to leave the apartment and then called me, getting my phone number from somewhere? In desperation, I started asking the old man. Okay, I'll tell you everything, but promise me that you'll leave this cursed place as soon as possible. I will, just tell me. Then come in. It's not good to start a conversation on the doorstep. What's your name, by the way, son? Alexei. And you? I'm Ivan Stepanovich. Come into the kitchen. I'll make some tea. Yes, thank you, I replied to old man offer. So he made us a hot drink. We sat down at the table, and he began his story. You see, Alexei, evil spirits are attached to this apartment and they don't want to share it with anyone. And whoever moves in here doesn't stay long. Many people moved in before you, but they moved out more than a week. And the last tenant was found dead in the apartment, in the bathroom with his wrists cut. But as I understand it, the current owner didn't tell you all these interesting facts. Of course, this bitch just wants to make money, and she doesn't care about people's lives. She took your rent in advance, right? Yes, I answered with a trembling voice. You see, almost all the neighbors moved out of this floor. I was the only one left. Where did this evil force come from, and why in this apartment? I asked Stepanovich in confusion. Once upon a time, an old woman lived in this apartment. She did not communicate with anyone, rarely went out, and was always gloomy and dissatisfied. It was rumored that she liked to practice dark magic. I often heard some strange sounds coming from her apartment. Several times, some bailiffs came to her house to confiscate her apartment for non-payment. But she wouldn't let anyone in and cursed them with terrible curses until they gave up and left her alone. A year and a half ago, the old woman died, and the apartment passed into the hands of Natka, some distant, but only living relative of that which, God forgive me. So she started her business with this apartment, but she didn't care about the fact that people suffered from it. She took the money and said goodbye. But the witch came back from the dead and won't leave this apartment. So, boy, run away if you want to live. The old man's story alarmed me a lot, so I thanked him for the tea and decided immediately pack my things and run away from this damn apartment. I went to the door and wanted to put the key in to open it, but someone had already opened it before. I cautiously went inside and froze in horror. All my things were scattered around the apartment, broken dishes on the floor, and the doors of the cabinets were open. It was real chaos. Well, I've had enough of this. Fuck you, you old hag, I shouted. I'm not setting foot here again. I quickly started packing, and after about 20 minutes, I called a taxi and got out of the apartment. I never got through to the owner of apartment. I wish this money to backfire on you. The only thing that made me happy was that I was alive. At first I had to move back to the dormitory until a month later I found another apartment with a much higher rent, but safe. I thought so until last night, when someone rang my doorbell again while I was watching TV, and when I went to the door and looked through the peephole, I saw no one there. Did that evil find me here?